You're listening to my cousin D Lils on
It's D Lils you rockin' with hip hop and home runs. We don't criticize pros, man, it's all fun. Urban media, yeah, we talking sports, debating issues, spitting game on and off the court. It's hip hop and home runs.
hip hop and home runs.com.
D Lils once again. This is hip hop and home runs.com. Bringing you another audio webcast. Couple things, a lot of things that I want to talk about, but there's three things in particular that we're going to go over today. In the sports world, most importantly, live action. Got to cover Warriors and the Cavaliers. I'm going to talk about my thoughts about the series so far, heading into Game 6. Also want to recap some things going on in the Canadian Football League. You know, what's going on with Michael Sam. Obviously, it's my duty to cover social issues as well as things that are going on in the world of sports. So I got to talk about that and some interesting trade speculations and free agency rumors that I also want to address. So, you know, without further ado, let's get right into it. We're heading into Game 6. It's tomorrow night in Cleveland with the Cavaliers hosting the Warriors. If we roll back the tapes, you'll see that initially I did say that the Cavaliers were going to win this series in 7 games. I still believe that. You know, when you have the greatest player, and I've been hearing that a lot, the best player on the planet, the greatest player in the world, etc., etc. I don't think people actually understand the importance of having the best player on your team. Basketball is a sport where it's unlike football, it's unlike baseball. It's unlike hockey almost to a certain extent, because one person can really have the most impact on one game more than any other sport. I mean, football, if you have a good quarterback, chances are your team is going to be good. But if you have mediocre receivers, that could slow you down. You don't have a good running game. There's all types of obstacles that could stand into place on the gridiron. But when it comes to basketball, if you have one elite player, unless you literally deny him the ball going out of bounds, send double and triple teams, there's really no way that you can stop one player if he's that great. And I'm making the case for LeBron that, you know, it's not so much that he'll have a triple-double in Game 6. It's not so much that I think he'll have 50 points or anything like that. I think it's just, when it comes down, it's just the will. When you're on the court and you have that will and you have that tenacity to be the best player, at the end of the day, that will carry you over other talent that people are trying to compare to you. At the end of the day, I'm going to carry the Cavaliers through. This is all made for TV, television, entering Game 6. We expect this to go to 7 games. And what they need to do now is they need to regroup. It's really about just staying healthy. I don't think it's a matter of talent. I think people are really downplaying JR and Amy Shumpert, making it seem as if they're worse than they really are. And that's not the case. You know, JR was a guy who got drafted right out of high school. He's bounced around the teams, not because I believe he's a mediocre player, but because he's not coachable all of the time. And on this team, David Blatt isn't the coach LeBron is. And when you have a coach like LeBron, you know, that kind of enables you to have more of an impact on players. Now, since we're on there, talking about Coach Blatt, I'm glad that I mentioned him. There's a guy on Twitter, you know, he harassed me. Let me bring up his name. He's a real pain. And, you know, we've been going back and forth about the fact that David Blatt has on the Cavaliers and whether he is the right guy to coach them and what adjustments he's made and so on. So me and this guy keep going back. You can follow me on Twitter, Hip Hop and Home Runs, and that's just an N, not and. Hip Hop, the letter N, Home Runs. And David S47, he goes by David Sachs. And you know, this guy, me and him have been going back and forth on the Twitter. He's an avid Cavs fan, an avid Coach Blatt fan, and You know, he kind of looks like David Blatt to a certain extent. He may be even related. I'm not positive, but you know, basically his argument is that David Blatt is pretty much the coach of the year or deserves it. And what I'm telling you is that David Blatt is a good general coach. Let's just talk about general coaching. David Blatt is a good coach. Is he a good NBA coach? No. Does he work in the EuroLeague? Oh, he's the Phil Jackson over there. But when it comes to making adjustments in grown man sport where you can't hit the ball out of the rim when it already touches, where the three-point line is a little bit farther out, where you don't have a weird bended free throw lane, none of that foolishness. Okay, when you're actually talking about the men's game of basketball, the one that James Naismith invented, David Blatt is not fit to be an NBA coach. You can't categorize him as a player's coach, unless you just want to say the players walk all over him, because that's what they do. You can't. He's not a big X and O guy because they have no offensive sets. I mean, coaching never stops regardless of injuries. Kyrie has been out. Kevin Love is out. Varejao. The list goes on. A good coach is able to, okay, we're missing this, we're missing this. How can we put this player in a better position to make all these other players more effective on the court? I haven't seen that out of Coach Blatt. So I'm sorry, David Sachs at David S47. Coach Blatt isn't getting it done, and he should be fired at the remaining of the season, regardless of whether the Cavs come back and win or not. David Blatt should not have a job with the Cleveland Cavaliers organization. I'm sure he'll be successful going back to Europe. But when it comes to the men's game, when it comes to coaching the best player in the world, you need to be a little bit more polished. You need to have a little bit of genius to you. And all the guys, and you know, I don't even think Eric Spoelstra is that great of a coach, but one thing that Eric Spoelstra could do was draw up a good out-of-bounds play. He could draw up a final 20 seconds to go. This is what I want you to run. He did have that. Now, he also had Dwayne Wade, who's a future Hall of Famer. He had Chris Bosh, and those guys stayed relatively healthy throughout that campaign. But he's a step up above Coach Blatt. Don't want to give him over credit. So, yeah, David Blatt, he should be fired by the remainder of the season. There's plenty of coaching candidates out there. I don't even want to get into that. We can say that for another podcast. But I fully expect the Cavs to bounce back. Uncle Harry. That boy Harrison Barnes, media's created the nickname Bad News Barnes. I've been calling him Uncle Harry for the last 3 years since he played for UNC. Harrison Barnes will be the problem for Golden State in the next couple of years because you're not going to be able to pay Draymond Green. You're not going to be able to give Steph a new contract in the new CBA. You're not going to be able to pay Clay. You're not going to be able to pay Harrison Barnes. And you still have Iguodala signed to a maximum contract. There's no way you can pay all these people and still have the type of depth that you have on the bench. There's just no way. One of those guys have to go, and the way I see it, Harrison Barnes is going to be the person left out. Same thing that happened to OKC in 2012 with James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, Serge Ibaka. You cannot have 4 great players. You can't have 4 max players all on the same team, or 4 close to max. You can have 3, you can't have 4. Right now they have Iggy, they have their MVP, and I think they're going to pay Clay. Clay, they're all under contract, but in terms of long time, these guys are all young. We're talking about that main contract that they get mid-career, prime career. Those are the 3 guys they're going to have to keep. And you're going to have to figure out, well, what do I do with Draymond? You're going to sign him in the offseason, but you're going to sign a 6'6" guy with limited athleticism that just is tough. I mean, Draymond Green is basically Kenneth Faried who can shoot a 3 with less athleticism. He just has that motor that just never stops. So watch out for that next year. Golden State's gonna have issues with that. Let's change gears a little bit and get into football. So Michael Sam mysteriously left camp. Went home, didn't tell the news, media outlets, anything, why he left. Granted, he's not in the NFL. This is a CFL team, Alouettes, I believe that's their name. And man, the coach was surprised that he left. So, I wanted to talk about that because people are in uproar, and Michael Sam, they made a lot of news. He made a lot of news coverage. There was just a lot going on in terms of the NFL draft and last season surrounding this first gay NFL player. And these are my thoughts on the issue. If I could sit down with Michael Sam, I would ask him these questions. 1, do you want to be gay, or do you want to be a football player? That's not that question is coming from me, but I'm asking this on behalf of the National Football League, because you can't be both. We're not at the time yet where you can be both a gay player and an NFL player. If you truly wanted to be an NFL player, what you should have done is allowed yourself to get drafted, because you would have gotten drafted. Okay, you should have just kept the mute on the gay talk for right now. And what you should have done is go ahead and get drafted into the league, build camaraderie with your teammates, maybe get into the season. Guess what? After you're already on contract, they can't void your contract because of your sexual identity or gender or any of that. So the right thing, in my opinion, what would have done and made most sense, because you're doing something that's never been done before. You have to be smart about it, Michael. Okay, so what you should have done was say, okay, I'm going to get drafted, and I'm going to build camaraderie with teammates, and I'm going to make a name for myself as a football player in the NFL. And then if you want to come out and say, hey, he's homosexual, whatever the case may be, then you can do that at that point, because you already have made a foundation for yourself in the NFL. But now, no one wanted to pick you up, because nobody wants that Tebow-like circus everywhere they go, where they got you coming up to the post-game conference. You didn't even play. You had DMPs. Michael Sam, get it together. If this was the Breakfast Club, I'd give you the donkey of the day, but I don't think that's appropriate. Moving on. Free agency basketball popped up on my radar today. Clippers interested in Lance Stephenson. Here again, they call me Donstradaumus. Don, roll back the tape. So, what do the Clippers need to do? There's a couple things they need to do. Let's talk about their weakest spot on their floor is probably their shooting guard position right now. You can make the argument that Matt Barnes is the weakest at small forward, but Matt Barnes does play defense. He does bring some tenacity to the floor. He does bring some rebounding from the small forward position, and he still gives you outside shooting. So, he's going to give you what he's going to give you. JJ Redick, however, I feel like is a weak link on this offense. He's a spot-up three-point shooter, and that's all he's giving you. He's not locking anyone down. He's not being a great one-on-one on-the-ball defender. He's really not giving you much of any production outside of that three ball, and if that three ball isn't hitting, he's no good to you than any other bench guy, a Jimmer Fredette, honestly. So, I think that the Clippers should explore trade options, and one trade option that comes to mind off the top of my head is Lance Stephenson. It didn't work out for him in Charlotte. He came in with the attitude that I'm going to be the guy. We're going to have this New York backcourt with me and Kemba Walker, etc., etc. Things didn't go as planned. And I think Charlotte needs to upgrade their shooting overall on the team. Henderson isn't a great shooter. So it looks like, once again, I knew what I was talking about. I make these predictions all the time. Said Kevin Love was going to Cleveland. Said Andrew Wiggins was going to Minnesota. I said the Detroit Lions were going to make the playoffs. There's so many things that I've been right about this year. You guys got to start paying attention to me. Lance Stephenson, I said in an earlier podcast, he would be a great fit for the Clippers. They need a rugged two guard who can play defense. You can bring Redick off the bench. Reportedly, the trade is Lance Stephenson for Matt Barnes and Spencer Hawes. That's gonna hurt Matt to leave LA because that's home to him. That's where his kids grow up, and everything. But at the end of the day, Doc has to do his best for this team. Spencer gave them no production whatsoever, and he'll go and he'll give Al Jefferson. They'll give that front line some depth over there in Charlotte. Matt Barnes, who's somebody who can knock down the three-point shot and play defense. I don't know if he'll start. They have Kid Gilchrist there right now. They'll probably most likely bring Matt Barnes off of the bench. Kind of like a filler 3-and-D role. But the Clippers can turn the corner. If Lance can just, build some chemistry with this unit with Blake and DeAndre and Chris, and he can get his role. I'm not sure if they want to start him or bring him off the bench. In my opinion, you start him, you bring Redick off the bench. You already have Jamal Crawford. You have plenty of offense. Let the offensive unit come off the bench. You're going to have offense with your starters with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin. Bring some defensive tenacity in the backcourt. With Lance and Chris, now I thought Lance and Kemba were going to work out, but Lance and Chris, NBA Western Conference Finals. Mark my words. If they make that happen, they end up playing OKC. I'm telling you guys, this is what's going to happen right now. Next year in the NBA playoffs, in the Western Conference semifinal round, you have Oklahoma City Thunder playing the Golden State Warriors on one side. And you'll have the Los Angeles Clippers playing, they'll most likely be playing the San Antonio Spurs on the other side, with rights to go to the Western Conference. And I fully expect OKC to take care of Steph and them next year. And I expect the Clippers to get out of there and to meet OKC in the Western Conference Finals. So that will be a good test for Chris Paul. But yeah, great trade. And again, I predicted it first. Where'd you hear it first? HipHopandHomeRuns.com. No one gives you this type of coverage.